This conference will now be recorded.
All right, once again, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining Brain Balance's Sensory Sensitivities Holiday Guide workshop tonight. I know there's a lot to go over in a short amount of time, so I want to get going. But I do applaud all of you for taking the time to learn more, ask your questions ahead of time, and just really set yourself and your family up for success this holiday season. So just a little bit about me before we get started. I am Amanda. I am the Center Director at Brain Balance of San Diego and Chula Vista. My background is in education, and I've been doing a lot of these types of workshops and more for quite a number of years. And I'm very excited to have Angie Arciga, who is our program director. I'm gonna let her talk a little bit about herself. She'll be leading most of this workshop this evening.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm super excited to be just giving you some more tips on sensory sensitivities. I have been working with Brain Balance for over 6.5 years. I can't believe it's been that long, but I've really enjoyed working with all of our families, all of our kiddos. So I'm excited to be going through this workshop with you.
Great. So today we're going to talk a little bit about who exactly is brain balance, why are we here, and then of course go into what exactly sensory processing challenges are and the common signs and challenges to look out for, especially during the holidays. And of course, the tips that you can apply right away to set yourselves up for success. And then after all said and done, if you still need more help, where does brain balance come in? And if we have time, we'll do some Q&A. So we'll do our best to include that at the end of this presentation. But I know we did have some questions that folks registered with, so we'll try to answer that throughout the presentation as well. All right, Angie, so you're the pro, you've been with Brain Balance for quite some time. What exactly is Brain Balance though?
So what I love about this program and what really drew me is that we're a holistic approach. We really look at the full individual, and we're working with anyone really who is having any kind of struggle, whether that's social, emotional, cognitively, processing, sensory, all of those different areas really tell us that there's more going on. And so we're really looking at the root cause of what's happening, and that's really what I'm excited to go over with you today.
Awesome. Oops. And I think this is worth mentioning as well. One thing that makes Brain Balance so unique is that we do get to the root of the problem. Angie and I meet with a lot of families. I do a lot of presentations with schools and community partners, and so many programs out there tend to focus. They don't try to, but they just tend to focus on the symptoms, right? The problem behavior, the learning challenge, the anxiety or social challenge. They're especially attention to focus. That's one of the #1 challenges we tend to hear and families tend to have struggles with. And I know a lot of people who registered for this workshop also listed that as some of their family challenges. But here's the thing, there's so much more going on underneath the surface. We, again, tend to focus on the behaviors and put a Band-Aid on those symptoms, but what is going on that's causing these challenges? Angie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so why I like this diagram so much is because, like you said, we do focus on those top behaviors. So what we're seeing with anyone having any of those challenges, but what we sometimes don't really think about is that those behaviors are actually our kids trying to communicate that there is something going on. So again, we're really looking at why those behaviors are happening, and a lot of the times, like I said, it's that communication that we have to really keep an eye on and make sure that we're able to really understand each individual and each student.
Absolutely. And the good news is we want to give every family hope is that the brain can change. And so we're going to go right into what exactly sensory processing challenges are. That's what this workshop is all about tonight. So this is something that is one of the top 3, I would say, things that folks come to us for. But it's a pretty big umbrella. So what exactly are sensory processing challenges, Angie?
So it's our ability to be able to have that sensory input, whether it's visual, auditory, tactile, with that sense of touch, and being able to regulate all of that stimulation so that we're not bothered by it. And a lot of the times, a lot of us students are either oversensitive or undersensitive, but a lot of the times they can also have both. So just really being able to understand how it is that we can regulate a lot of this input is going to be really important in really keeping students from having those meltdowns. But there are other sensitivities that we're not as aware of, which is that interoception, which is really being able to understand your body and really being able to have that internal GPS. And then at Brain Balance, we also work on proprioception and the vestibular system, which both go hand in hand. Really, it's about being able to take our surroundings, taking all of that information and really understanding, like I said, our body, our emotions, so that then we can also, build those social relationships as well.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing you say too is it is quite complicated in the brain. That synchronization is key, right? You talked about the visual, the tactile, the auditory, and all these other internal senses that we don't tend to think about or even know about, but that everything coming together as it's supposed to and responding as we're supposed to, I think is really key for folks to understand.
One thing that I just wanted to add, one thing that I always tell our families is that there is not one system that works in unison. Really, it's multiple systems that are working super fast to be able to process all of this information. And if there's just one system that's 1 millisecond behind, it's going to throw off the entire system. So like I said, we are looking at the whole person, the full body, the full brain, those connections to really get to the why.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about these sensory challenges. You talked about some people can be hypersensitive, some people could be hyposensitive, some people can be both. How do families know which one they are or their child is?
So some of the things that you want to look for, if you have someone who is very hypersensitive, so they're very highly sensitive to, like I mentioned, sound, or if they're just very easily distracted with blinking lights, just different distractions in their environment, or even that tactile. If they get very nervous around people, even if you have just a light touch and that startles them, all of those different things are things to look for, and that lets you know that there's something else going on. A lot of the times that may be one of the symptoms that you're seeing, but like I said, there could be other challenges that you're also seeing with, whether it's distractibility or hyperactivity. Like I said, there's not one system that works in unison, so we work with all of it. Now, when we're working with students with that are avoiders, sometimes what you might see is, kids or just individuals who need headphones or earplugs, or sometimes they might just need to isolate themselves, which that starts to impact their social skills as well, just not really being able to be around a lot of people. And especially with the holidays, maybe they're avoiding going to any holiday parties or social gatherings. So this is something really important to keep an eye on, just to make sure that it doesn't impact all these other areas as well. Now we have the other side of the spectrum as well, with the hyposensitivity. So it's those kids that are needing to seek that sensory input, which is, those deep touches, constantly needing to, hold on to your hand, very tightly, or needing to get those tight hugs, or just constantly running around, needing to spin. All of those behaviors that you see is because a student really needs that input to really be able to regulate themselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when we think of sensory, it's so common to think about smells or sound or the lights, right? Or even clothing textures, being really picky with clothes. But I love that you mentioned some of those other symptoms like distractedness, and even for hyposensitivity, the sensory seekers, maybe they're clumsy and uncoordinated, or they have a lot of risky behavior. We had a lot of kids who like to climb up the stairs or climb up the bookshelf and jump down, but parents don't realize it's not just their hyperactivity, it's them trying to either get sensory input or avoid sensory input. And as we mentioned, a lot of times it could be both. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. And so much so far, I've been hearing you talk a lot about how that brain needs to work together, right? No one system is responsible for one behavior. We all need to have everything synced up. And so the idea of brain balance is that when things are flowing appropriately in the brain, and I personally like to think of it like a highway, when things are green light and there's no traffic, there's no crazy rainstorm like it was today, things are good. It doesn't mean we're perfect though, but you're not struggling the way someone with extra sensitivities may. And when you do see those symptoms that we discussed, or you see kiddos having trouble learning, making friends, regulating their emotions, those are other signs that they may be imbalanced. And at our center, in our assessment, we tend to help families not only understand the foundation of their child's development, but where those weaknesses are, whether it's left or right brain, and what we can do about it. How do we fill in those gaps and holes in their development? So as I mentioned earlier, the good news is the brain can change. There are things you can do to stimulate the brain. In fact, all those different billion plus neurons in your brain are most stimulated by your senses. That's what we're talking about today, and movement. So we really encourage you to do that in an appropriate way. But we're going to talk about the holidays next. This is oftentimes a very exciting time of year. So let's start with the positive. What, Angie, and those who are on, please contribute in the chat box. What exactly are you excited about during the holidays? What gets you oh so jolly?
Especially over these last 2 years when we've been isolated, just not having any kind of normalcy. I love just having a family over, just getting together, whether it's in the kitchen and cooking and baking, just having that togetherness is what I most look forward to at any holiday, especially, and like I said, with that cooking. What are you looking forward to?
Well, I've been trying to get myself in the holiday mood this year. I started early. It's been, everyone's been in a funk, but I set up early. The decorations I love, the lights I really love. I just came back from Dallas and they have this entire plaza decorated in lights and little search for all the lost reindeer. Basically, it was just a lot of fun, and we just decorated our center with some lights too. So that's something I enjoy. And I see Kara put she enjoys the traditions, and this time getting to travel to see her family. So that's really neat. Congratulations on that. All right. So on the flip side, though, you're not here because everything's all gravy, right? There's things I'm sure everyone is a little anxious about too. So for me personally, even though I'm quite extroverted and love the lights and love all the stimulation, even I get overstimulated and I get anxious at times when things are just a little too much. I've been socializing with a lot of new people, or I do see a lot of lights and hear a lot of music. At times, I just need to retreat and come back in. Angie, what are you anxious about during the holidays, or what have you heard other parents share with you?
Yeah, actually both. So one thing that I've been hearing from a lot of parents, and then something that I get anxious about too, is just that loss in routine. So I like to plan, I like having my regular routine, but when we're closed for the holidays, it's just trying to keep that same schedule. And that's exactly the same thing that I'm hearing from a lot of our families too, as I've been meeting with them this month, just trying to plan as much as possible, trying to keep that routine and schedule for their family.
And I know some families listed some of their anxieties and challenges this holiday, whether you lost a loved one, and how do you celebrate that this time of year, but still properly grieve, to the transitions and the schedule you talked about, to the overstimulation as well. So we got a lot of questions about a little bit of everything. So hopefully we can help answer that next. So what are some common holiday triggers? We've already discussed quite a bit of that. So Angie mentioned the changes in schedule, activities, sleep. I talked about the lights, but also the aromas and the foods and candles. That's something that actually I'm quite sensitive to. The holiday music and the volume of the room and the people wearing all the itchy, uncomfortable clothes, and actually eating different foods and probably a lot of sugar. Actually, that was another question a family had, was how do we get through the holidays without eating so much treats and sugar? I think, Andrew, you could answer that in a little bit. So we know what some of these triggers are. Maybe you don't, and that's something you need to pay attention to. But here are things that we can actually do to support your family. Number one, Angie, I know we'll talk about, is plan ahead. What does that mean, Angie?
Yes, planning ahead as much as possible. I know that there's always surprises that come up, but if you plan ahead, that'll just make the week just go by a lot smoother. So when we're talking about planning ahead, if you're going to any holiday parties, like I mentioned before, maybe talk with the host, ask what they're going to be serving, if they do have any alternatives. Another big one that I always like to plan for is having snacks readily available, especially to reduce those sugars. We want to make sure that, you know, we are having, you know, proper and good nutrition, that we're fueling our bodies with appropriate food. So you want to make sure that if we need those snacks, just planning ahead, having it readily available. And again, we want to try to really have that proper nutrition as much as possible. I know that it's really challenging with the holidays to stay away from all those sugary, you know, treats, but even trying to get alternatives, or like I said, taking just alternatives to the host, to really make sure that, you know, we're planning ahead as much as possible, getting that good sleep. Again, keeping that schedule and routine as close to what it was before break as possible, and then really limiting screen time. I know that it's so much easier, especially when things are just so hectic, to just have students or kids be on that screen time, but just try to, again, keep the schedule the same and routine as much as possible. And then, yeah, reducing stimulation with, I mean, there's so many things that are going on when we, you know, during the holiday season, with the lights, the smells, all of the different textures. So again, just reducing and keeping things simple, or as simple as you can. And then I know that for the holidays, photos can be a big trigger for a lot of kids with the flashing of the camera. So just making sure that we are either turning that off, or, you know, just make sure that if they're having to wear different clothes for those pictures, that we're planning ahead of time and giving them, you know, just 2 or 3 different choices and then taking them off right after. So again, just really making sure that we're really understanding our children, so that we are just having as smooth a holiday as possible. And then keep the stress as low as possible. It is some hectic times, so just try to reduce as much of that as possible.
Great tips, Angie. So everyone, I know it's going to take more work up front, but plan ahead. Plan ahead with the schedule, setting those expectations, and trying to normalize your routine, and keeping it as consistent as possible is key. Don't overschedule. That's always my recommendation. Eat clean, keep that sleep routine. Again, move that body, right? That's what trains the brain and gets those connections going. So limit that screen time, or at least balance it, or at least do it together if you're going to, right? Maybe a holiday movie together, and, you know, keep those experiences during the holiday season lovely. You know, Kara, you're talking about the traditions. You know, holiday photo is usually a tradition, but it doesn't have to be a negative experience. So keep it fun, keep shopping fun and light and easy, and please monitor, you know, how your kiddo's doing, because without monitoring them, how would you ever know, right? Having those signs to, you know, decompress or escape or have a quiet space is really good. Communicate with your child. And as Angie said, you have to keep your stress low. If you can't keep your own stress low and you can't take care of yourself and hydrate and eat well and sleep too, the kiddos are going to experience it as well. And they're going to, it's a trickle down effect, right? So keep expectations realistic, everyone. If your child was having struggles before the holidays, it's likely to be heightened during the holidays. That's why you're here today. So we thank you for coming and joining us. So I want to wrap it up. Today, for being part of this workshop, we will be sending you a couple holiday survival guides, as well as a link to this recording. And if you've already done a lot for your kiddo and you're just wondering, is there more? Is this normal? What else can we do? You know, perhaps getting some outside help, additional outside help is key. So perhaps an assessment. You know, we do quite an extensive assessment to help you understand, again, your child's full potential. And because we are non-medical, we don't clinically diagnose, we just help you understand the root challenges, and that's key. We're helping you understand a lot more information than really any other assessment is going to give you. And for being part of this workshop tonight as well, you do get an assessment special that Kenny will follow up with you about. So, you know, we've been around for over 10 years. We've served about 50,000 families at this point, again, many of which have focus and challenge issue, focusing challenge issues and sensory processing challenges. So we invite you to have your own breakthroughs with us. Hopefully this holiday season, quite a few of these kiddos here have had struggles with sensory challenges, with reading, with all these various neurodevelopmental deficiencies that they were able to train through a personalized approach, and that's what's really neat. We're research-based and we know what we're doing, so we invite you to at least give us a call, stay connected with us, help us understand more. If you need more help, or you can do a little bit more research on your own, read Disconnected Kids, or go on our website or blogs. Our social media accounts also have a lot of resources, so just stay in touch with us. Share this link with any others that you think would need support, or if you think your child's school needs some training, let them know. Just pass the word. We're here to be a community resource. So speaking of more information and community resources, next year we do have a couple workshops that are also free. These are virtual workshops. The first one is about healthy eating in the new year, and what you put in your body matters. That gut-brain axis is key. So check us out. We have a community partner coming out to present for us. And then we also have a virtual open house talking all about independence and executive functioning, another big challenge a lot of our families come to us for. So join us then. Kenny, I'm gonna actually, Angie, I'll leave it to you first. Anything else that you wanted to add? And then Kenny, if you don't mind, piping in a little bit with any questions that we missed. And then if anybody else on the workshop tonight, if we didn't answer your question, or if you have other questions that came up as this chat was going on, please feel free to put it in the chat box too. I just want to make sure we wrap up in time. We have about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. I know that this is just one piece of those challenges and struggles. So if there's anything else that you're struggling with, I advise you you start with that assessment to really get the answers that you need. But thank you everyone for your time.
I think we addressed everyone's questions in the sheet, so if anyone else has questions, they want to type into the chat box.
Kara, good luck traveling with those 2 kiddos. I was traveling today, and I know it's a tough time, again, with all those changes. So prepare those activities, get those headphones, get the comfy clothes on, make sure they're as comfortable as possible, and helping them be a part of that planning process too. It doesn't have to all be on you. Sabrina, do you have any other questions? And anybody else too?
No, thank you so much. I truly appreciate your guys' evening Zoom meeting, and also just the information. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You are very welcome. And everyone, usually our workshops are an hour. This is only half an hour. So clearly this was a Zoom workshop, just to give you a little taster and some information you could take away with you now. But if you're interested in our other workshops, they tend to be an hour, a little bit more in depth. And then if you're wanting to learn more about sensory challenges, our website, like I mentioned, has an additional hour, I believe, hour and a half long webinar, both on our website and our YouTube channel. They're a little bit different, but much more involved there, that can really help you understand what's going on in your child's brain, or your own brain even. We can all, by the way, use a little bit of brain balance. We all have a little bit of sensitivities and strengths and weaknesses in all the different hemispheres and regions of our brain. But when it becomes to impact our everyday lives and learning and social relationships and whatnot, that's when I usually tell parents that's when you should be concerned, right? When it's a pattern that disrupts your everyday life. So I applaud you all again for taking the time to join us this evening. We wish you a good luck and a very happy holiday, warm, dry season. and just enjoy, okay? We'll see you in the new year. Take care.